What's going on, everybody? Doc from Average Gamer Guys and Sloth. We're back. Halo Wars 2 action. Today we're doing our Sergeant Johnson unit and hero breakdown. I'm going to jump over the deck, just like we've always done in the past. If you're new to the channel, what we're essentially going to do is we're going to take each of the cards. We run them against specific units. We have a spreadsheet that we link down below. Everybody can pull that up. You can save a copy yourself, which provides a lot of great statistics for all of the units in the game. We update it every time a DLC comes out with new units, and that's essentially what we're doing here. So if you're not familiar with the strategy or how we employ it, we essentially take those units one-on-one. We fight them, we time them. We also get all the additional stats, so it's a quick glance to check, take a look at health differences, any additional abilities that they may have. And for the first time ever with this spreadsheet, we actually did a little bit of testing with some of the leader powers, put some of the statistics in there for bunker drop and siege turret, which we'll talk about here in a second. And for this video, we're just going to roll through and just kind of chat, give her our impressions, the good and the bad from what we found through testing, and just hopefully provide you a little bit more information. That way, when you go to build a deck, or maybe you're trying to figure out that last slot in your deck, and you're not sure if you want to, put in a Scorpion or you want to put in the Colossus, hopefully you got an additional spreadsheet that you can use, some additional data to hopefully make a good decision. Now, obviously, there's a lot of variables we can't control. One of those being veteran level, because of the packs we open are obviously random, but we try to get as close as we can. We try to keep as many of the variables the same as we can, and update it as frequently as we can. So if any new balance changes or updates come out, we'll obviously make those changes as well. We're talking Sergeant Johnson today. Again, the spreadsheet will be linked down below, so take a look at that. If you want to bring that up while we're chatting in the video, I think that's a good way to do it. I'm actually going to kick us off with bunker drop. I've always said, and I think Sloth would agree with me here, this is probably one of the best leader powers in the game. I think because of what it does, and because it's at such a low energy cost, it can really, really change the course of a game if you use it well. Now, obviously, it's not really going to deal any damage, and if you don't use it well, it can be absolutely terrible. But I think if you're smart with it, it can really lock down some points for you, and do a great job of providing some additional defense, and provide a lot of longevity for your units. So it's 40 energy. It actually has 13 total health and shield. It has 4 shield, 9 health, and it allows 4 infantry slots. So essentially, if you're using the bunker down starting army, which is our preferable starting army, you essentially can put just about everything in there. And our preferred method is usually to take the sniper out and put him up on a ridge or back a little bit. So you get yourself a pretty good value out of that.
Yeah, that's if there's one reason to use Sergeant Johnson, I feel like it's bunker drop. And they did a really good job, I think, of picking a good starting army that really complemented that well. We've seen a couple times, however, with DLCs coming out, some units aren't great. We saw the standard Flame Warthog was pretty bad against like air units and stuff. The Mantis, the standard Mantis, to be blunt, is garbage. It took 46 seconds to take down a standard Reaver, and it actually couldn't do it without being healed. We put them head to head in the Reaver and anti-air vehicle, killed the Mantis. And so an anti-air cheaper unit killed the standard Mantis in a one-on-one fight. We had to have the Mantis be healed the entire time it was fighting to get a number. So for me, until numbers are crunched and on the matchmaking balancing side, the Mantis is out for me. The standard Mantis. I don't see any reason to use it after that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And only 6 health too. I think they did a little disservice there by at least not giving it a little bit more longevity, and it's pretty slow. So it's a loser in every category, and at 80 energy too. It's pretty expensive. Hopping over real quick, we didn't do a ton of testing with Mech Dvercharge. We take just a quick. It was kind of hard to get a perfect exact number. The invulnerability obviously works. This is actually a pretty decent leader power if you do have a lot of mechs on the battlefield, but it only lasts in blitz for about 5 to 6 seconds. which is probably almost a perfect number for this leader power. But I'm not sold on it, to be honest. I think it maybe saves you in one fight. The 90 energy isn't great. It's not terrible. I think it's probably pretty well positioned. Maybe if they gave it a couple extra seconds, but at that point, then you're talking about the balance of it being overpowered. So test it out, try it out. If you do use a lot of the mechs, if you do use like the veteran Mantis, which we'll talk about here in a minute, your Cyclops and Sergeant Johnson, it could have some viability. But just for me, it's probably a pass.
Yeah, and like most things with Sergeant Johnson, I feel like it has a really strong defensive capability.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing against Isabel and you see a Mac Blast is coming in and you've got that Mech Overcharge in your hand, pop it and make him invincible for a few seconds. Or, if you're playing against Atriox and you have the Eradication coming in, I feel like that can be a really strong, like, hard counter to some of these really good damage dealing leader powers. But you have to have it in your hand, have all that energy, and be ready to spend it and have quick reflexes.
Right.
So it's kind of a perfect storm of things that makes it a hard counter. So it may just be it may have too much surrounding it that has to go right for it to be viable. So I'm with you here. For me, it's kind of a no-go at this point. But I mean, doesn't mean it's bad. I do think it definitely has its viability, but maybe not in our play styles.
Sure.
One thing that we've talked about for the last couple days at least, the siege turret. 100 energy, it's actually the same amount of energy as a standard Kodiak, and basically does the same thing. The big thing we were curious about is it is a temporary long range turret. So we actually tested it out. It's 3 minutes. Right at 3 minutes, it's in game, and you get a good 8 bars of health out of it, and honestly, pretty good damage. I really feel like it's just a Kodiak in different skin that can't move. If you want to think about it that way, it is going to come up to dealer's choice. 3 minutes is a long time in a blitz game, so unless you feel like you're really entrenched and you're not going to have to move at any point, I don't know. It'll kind of come down to it, but I know, Doc, you prefer kind of siege turrets, and I prefer kind of Kodiaks. Honestly, I don't think there's a correct, incorrect answer on that.
Yeah, I'll put out 3 kind of specific things, which again the spreadsheet is great for us being able to look at it and reference back. At 8 health bars, it actually has as much health as your Stealth and your Vanguard Kodiak, which both cost additional energy, 110 and 120. So that's kind of a plus in the siege turret's favor. Obviously, it does have the timer, so that's a negative. It also comes in, because it's a leader power, it comes in essentially with rush. I think, which is why I like it. It also doesn't need to be, even like a standard Kodiak, you don't have to do any additional button presses or anything. You literally use the card, drop it in, set it and forget it, and let it go. Now, usually you'll do that with a Kodiak, but if you call a standard Kodiak in, you got to press Y, you got to find a place. There's just little minute things, but the fact that it does have rush, which you essentially are paying 10 additional energy for with the Vanguard Kodiak, I think actually for me, I think that's kind of why it boiled down, and I kind of bumped it into my favor. I like to be able to play a card, especially leader power. I like to be able to use it immediately, and then not have to worry about it. And I think this is what it does. And again, looking at it now, I wasn't sure if it had more or less health than regular Kodiaks, and it's actually interesting that it has the same health as kind of the higher tier versions of the Kodiak. Additionally, found out in Firefight a couple of days ago that it doesn't count against your population cap. So if you do end up getting to that point ever, you probably won't in a regular Blitz game, but definitely in Blitz Firefight, if you need something that can extend you beyond your 30 population cap, you got to have the siege turret.
It's actually a solid point. That's actually a really good use of that.
Yeah, I like it. So, but you guys got to test it out, and it all also too really depends on veteran level for you guys. Mine's only veteran level 1, where some of my Kodiaks are up into the 2s and at the high end on 4. So that's a consideration as well. But jumping over, we'll talk veteran Mantis. This one, I think it holds its own, but it's still, in my opinion, not the best of units. Pairing it against the Reaver, it had a 22.6 second kill against the Reaver. Did fine. It does get a pretty good bump in health overall. It has 11 total. It gets 4 shield and then an additional health bar up to 7. So not bad. For the 20 energy, if you really want to do and play with the Mantis, this is the option. This is the one you have to go with, hands down. It is just going to be a better overall unit. The additional 20 energy for what equates to 5 additional health and essentially almost, well, more than cutting the time to kill in half is an easy decision. But I'm still not sold on it, to be honest. I think there are other options, potentially Scorpions and some other things. While maybe a little bit more vanilla now, you don't get as much flavor playing with Sergeant Johnson because you don't really get to use as many of the units. If you are looking for the most efficient damage dealing unit, I think you're probably still looking elsewhere.
Yeah, we'll see kind of a theme here after we get done with all of this. Is if you have 2 or 3 leader specific cards that are solid, it's going to be a good leader. Because a lot of these, I mean, we just went over the Mantis Mech Dvercharge, depending on how you feel, a Siege Turret, Veteran Mantis, and maybe even EMP MAC Blast. Kind of meh. I mean, that's what we've gotten to at this point, because EMP MAC Blast, in our opinion, not going to be worth it either. I had a lot of level 4 grunts set up, and Doc actually brought a Nightingale over to attack the grunts, and I had, just for like vehicle's sake, I had some Reavers there as well. He EMP MAC blasted my group, did not even kill standard grunts, and the Reavers recovered so fast they started shooting the Nightingale out of the sky before it could get out.
Yeah.
That's not a very good amount of time. So, I mean, we're going to see if you can get 3, maybe 4 leader-specific cards that are going to be really solid out of each leader. You're going to be okay, because these cards that they're going to share, like the Vulture, the standard Scorpion, Vanguard Wolverines, things like that, I mean, those are going to be there. They're going to have to be there. So it's going to kind of be these 2, 3, 4 cards that are going to be specific to leaders. And hopefully these last couple ones might do that for us.
Yeah, I will say, just a side note, it is nice that he does have a direct damage dealing leader power. While not great, I wish the stun was better. I think if the stun lasted a little bit longer, I think then you really do make the argument. But the sole fact that he does have a damage dealing leader power where some leaders do not is okay. This is just probably one of the worst ones. And I think Sloppy could agree with me on that.
Yep.
It is good that he has it. I just wish it could be better, and hopefully maybe in the future it will. I do think, again, when I read this card, I really thought the stun was going to be a lot better. I thought it was going to be a couple seconds at least. When they say brief stun, they really mean brief stun. So it could be much better. So going on, talking the Colossus at 130 energy. Another unit that when we had actually just played with it the first couple games and have been playing with it over the course of the last little bit, I've just not been impressed with it. When it comes down to it, statistics-wise, it's not bad. It's not terrible. It's actually pretty decent going up against a Reaver. It had a 15.7 second time to kill. It does have 11 health, so it's pretty beefy as far as the unit is concerned. I think the best thing, and I think the thing that we kind of had the argument between me and Sloth about was, would you rather have this or would you rather have a Scorpion? I'm still going to side with the Scorpion. Scorpion is technically a little bit slower on the time to kill. It has a little bit less health, but it's also 20 less energy. So I think this does have a place. If you really do want to try to use a Sergeant Johnson card, get some of the flavor in, it can actually be a pretty good tank, quote unquote. I just think it's not probably the best for all of your situations. I do believe it's great against vehicles. I think where it really takes a step back from like a regular Scorpion is just going to be the fact of it's not quite as good against air. And when you're spending 130 energy for a card, something that can attack everything, I think you at least want it to be okay against the rest of the types of units that it will fight. And haven't been impressed. The stats are kind of there, but you also really do have to take the energy cost into consideration.
Yeah, it's going to be a big thing, especially, I mean, when you look at, say, the Colossus is in between a Scorpion and a Vulture. Which would you rather have of those three if you had to pick one, maybe two? I mean, I'm going to pick Vulture, then Scorpion, then Colossus, personally. So I'm with you there. And I think that's just what it comes down to. It's not just time to kill, it's not just speed of the unit or whatever. You got to take into account the uh, the energy consumption as well, especially when you get to the higher stuff. So we'll see. I'm interested to see if any of Johnson's stuff will get any sort of balancing because he honestly doesn't feel underpowered in game.
Right.
And I don't know if that's just because we don't use a whole lot of his leader specific units or what it is. Now, the man, the myth, and the legend, Sergeant Johnson himself, is nasty. This dude is awesome. He beats the snot out of every other human controlled hero in almost every single category. Uh, Hero to hero, we've actually had all of our heroes attacking Douglas, and nobody killed Douglas faster than Sergeant Johnson, other than Alice, and she was one veteran level higher, and it's going to be real close. So I mean, he just beats the snot out of everybody. Less than 10 seconds to kill on a Wolverine, less than 7 on a Cyclops, and just a little over 10 and a half on a Nightingale. So this guy can run through some stuff by himself, and when you throw in that healing ability, this guy is so good. If there's one reason to use Sergeant Johnson, it's Sergeant Johnson.
Yeah.
And then the other one's obviously Bunker Drop.
Yeah.
But I mean, those two cards alone make this dude worth it for me.
Yeah, I like him. I was impressed to see the stats when we finally were able to run them up against each other. It always felt like, I was using him kind of in a defensive position. Like we talked about, it seems like he's generally a more defensive leader, which is totally fine. That's definitely a play style that people were kind of missing out on, I think. But to see his actual time to kills on everything, I was extremely impressed. And then as we got to talking while we were testing, it kind of makes sense. They didn't give him any additional kind of static ability. He just has the shield. He actually has one less health bar than your standard Spartans. So he's kind of a tier down, I guess, if you will, in that regard. His special ability, the Repair Beacon, is absolutely awesome. It's probably one of the better ones that we have. Super good. So take nothing against that. But besides that, he's kind of playing kind of vanilla. So the fact that they make him a great attacker, it fits. It makes sense. And it's finally good to see the stats, like I said, on the spreadsheet and on paper. And we were talking too, I think the thing that really gives him the advantage, he's got a great standard attack. It's the additional rocket that he gets every couple of seconds that fires that really puts him over the top. It just actually does quite a bit of damage, and it's great to see because he has the capability to attack in those two different modes, and he's not really weak to anything. He does really well against all of it. So definitely worth the 220 energy. Absolutely.
For sure, absolutely.
So that will really just wrap it up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Again, I really do, and I think Sloth would agree with me here. I really do enjoy making these videos. It's fun to test these guys. It's fun to get them in the one-on-one fights. It's actually really helpful for us deck building. So hopefully it was helpful for you guys. Again, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, join the Xbox Average Gamer Guys Club, do all that great stuff. Chat with us down in the comments. That's one of my favorite things to do, is reach out and chat with you guys and let me know what you think. Now that you've had quite a while actually to play and mess around with Sergeant Johnson and his units, I'd be really curious what you guys have seen, as well as some deck builds as well. I'm always curious to see how people kind of mold and shape the different cards and kind of how their strategies end up working out. And I would be really curious if somebody's been heavily using like the Veteran Mantis, the Colossus, and Mech Dvercharge, in a way that really helps them stack up some wins. So we've had a lot of fun. I've been Doc. That's been Sloth. We're Average Gamer Guys. As always, thank you guys so much for the support support and for checking this video out. Stay tuned for the rest of the week. A lot more content coming. Thanks again, and we'll catch you in the next video.